You know, there's a mental model that pretty much all of us use every single day. And what if I told you it's fundamentally wrong? Today, we're going to dig into a really simple but honestly profound shift in thinking. It might just change how you see, well, everything. So let me just ask you this straight up. Is the world really made of switches? I mean, we love to think that way, right? Things are either on or off, yes or no, black or white. And look, it makes things easy, for sure. It simplifies a super complex world. But it's just not the whole story. And this really gets at two totally different ways of thinking. On one hand, you've got what we can call binary thinking. The world of on-off, yes, no. But then there's this other way, analog thinking. It's a world of nuance. Instead of asking, is it on or off, it asks, well, how much? It's a huge shift from these simple states to a whole spectrum of intensity. Okay, so let's dive into our first big idea here, the on-off illusion. We're going to really pick apart this go-to mental model and see why it's so flawed.
This quote, this just hits the nail on the head. Think about gravity for a second. You can't just flip a switch and turn gravity off, right? It doesn't just pop into existence and then vanish. This simple fact is so key to understanding why that on-off model totally falls apart when you look at the real natural world.
Okay, so here's the crucial part. Gravity is always there. It's a continuous influence. I mean, the moon's gravity is pulling on you right now, just like the Earth's is. The difference isn't whether it's on or off, it's about its strength. The further away you get from something, the weaker its gravitational pull becomes. But here's the thing, it never actually hits zero. It's the perfect example of a force that just changes in strength, not in its on-off status. All right, so if the simple on-off light switch is the wrong way to think about it, what's a better metaphor? Well, that brings us right to our next idea, nature's dimmer switch. This is how we're used to seeing things. It's our default setting, our go-to mental shortcut. We're just wired to look for these simple, clear-cut divisions. But the problem is that simplicity often comes at the cost of being, well, right. But the world actually works more like this, a dimmer switch. And this is the big mental shift we need to make. Reality doesn't just flick on and off. It fades in, it fades out. The dimmer switch is such a better way to picture this analog world because it represents that smooth, continuous range of different intensities. Now, let's be super clear here. This doesn't mean switches don't exist. Of course they do. They're in our computers, our phones. I mean, our whole digital world is literally built on ones and zeros, on and off. But that's the key. Those systems are man-made. They're engineered. The natural world, the universe itself, that operates on smooth changes, a whole range of intensities, and these continuous functions. And this leads us to an even bigger kind of mind-bending idea, the always-on universe. This is where that dimmer switch metaphor really starts to stretch our brains a little. So this idea of continuous influence is absolutely central to all of this. What it means is that the fundamental systems of the universe, they're not just sitting around waiting to be turned on. They are always active. What changes is just how much they're expressing themselves, right? How intense their effect is at any given moment. So this really forces us to change the words we use. We're so used to thinking about things starting and stopping. But in an analog universe, it's way more accurate to think about something acting more strongly or less strongly. Think about a friendship, right? It doesn't just start one day and stop the next. It grows stronger, or maybe it fades a bit, all based on things like attention and interaction. The potential for that friendship is kind of always there. We can actually break this down into 3 pretty simple steps. Step 1. Just assume the system, whether it's gravity, heat, whatever, is always on. Step 2. Conditions change. Maybe you add more mass or you introduce some energy. And step 3, the system responds, not by flipping on, but by changing its intensity. I mean, think about it. A little campfire and a massive forest fire are both the exact same process, combustion. They're not on or off in different ways. They're just expressing that same process at wildly different intensities.
Okay, so what does all this mean for you? How can you actually apply this? That brings us to our final section, thinking in spectrums.
Look, if you only remember one thing from all this, let it be this. Reality is continuous and analog. It's not a collection of digital on-off switches. It's this beautiful, complex spectrum with infinite possibilities. So here's your new toolkit, your new mindset. Start seeing spectrums everywhere instead of simple switches. Focus on the intensity of things, not just their on-off status.
And instead of asking, is it happening yes or no, start asking, to what degree is it happening? Basically, train your brain to see the dimmer switch, not the light switch.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. What in your own world have you written off as stopped or over, when really it might just be operating at a lower intensity? Maybe it's just waiting for the right conditions to dial back up again. The answer might really surprise you. Thanks for digging into this with me.